Yeah, yeah, so I think I can see why this was popular with so many people. For, yeah, the mechanical reasons, the fact that it was after Stormblood, which didn't suck, but it was very... It suffered from the worst of the genericness of Heaven's Ward, and the worst of the inconsistency and just kind of lack of focus of Shadowbringer. Is probably a good way to put it, I think. Like, Heaven's Ward, I think, was my favorite because it was kind of generic, but at least it was consistent and solid, and the tone was good, and they weren't, like, overly ambitious what they were doing, and it also came after, incident, another case of it came after something not so great, which was A Realm Reborn post-game. So anything compared to that was going to be great. But it was just solid. Like, they didn't try to do anything too crazy. There's some neat stuff in there, some interesting plot points, and then they executed them well. Stormblood is just all over the place, and it should have been probably focused on one area or the other, not split up the way it was. And Lysy played too much of a prominent role in it, and it had some issues, and the villain was middling. He existed. He was just kind of the three villains, he was probably the least interesting, but he wasn't terrible. It's kind of your standard Blood Knight antagonist. I gotta go. You might do Unite after, we'll see. Okay, well, again, thanks for hanging out. Glad you got to see the end of Shadowbringers here. I'm going to continue complaining, but yeah, I'll talk to you later about the Unite thing. Yeah. It looks like since I'm done this, we can do it. So, but what else was I saying? Oh yeah, so yeah, just kind of like how it was set up, and what led up to Shadowbringers. I get it. And people. Here's the thing: like people, I think. That's what I was saying. It probably did a good job of balancing for the masses kind of thing. And I know that sounds super condescending. And maybe it is. But, like, I think people like that veneer of grimdark, but maybe don't actually want it. So they kind of got, like, I don't know, this idea of, oh, an edgy and adult storyline, and it really wasn't at all. Like, it masqueraded as that, and I think it, like, maybe satisfied people's needs for that without really actually giving it to them. Is that he's very one-dimensional? Yeah, no, I mean, he was a generic, he served his purpose villain. I mean, like, he wasn't terrible, so I'm not going to complain about it. He's just like, I'm creepy fighty dude that likes to fight people. I don't care about anything else, and that's why everything sucks, because I'm in charge, and if one person only cares about that, then it'll lead to bad things. Whatever, okay, it's been done a million times. I'm not going to complain about it too much. Emmett was interesting because he felt like a villain from a different game or genre or something. Like, the stuff he was doing and saying didn't make sense a lot of the time, but I said before, it doesn't have to, right? Like, people just do weird, illogical shit all the time, and he's a bad guy. Honestly, if what he did made total sense and he was justified, then he wouldn't almost be a villain, really. So, yeah, it's kind of neat. Him following you around was kind of a neat sort of twist to it. So, like, again, this expansion has neat bits like that. The whole... they actually kind of made the Minfilia thing a bit interesting. The former Warriors of Light kind of traveling around as the Sin Eater things. The thing with, like, your soul fragment is like the X something from the past that has something to do with them. Like, there's fragments of interesting things. A lot of the time it's marred by the execution, and the things surrounding it are done poorly. So... I keep saying I don't have anything else to say on it, but... Interesting villain compared to Xenos? Yeah. It's unfortunate how the whole Yotsuyu line ended. I mean, the way it ended exactly as a whole is not terrible, just the way they did it was quite poor. So that actually reminds me of this whole expansion pack, actually. There was an interesting, or rather, there was a lot of interesting ideas, and most of the time it was not totally squandered because the idea is still there, but the presentation was very bad. Sometimes. It ranged from kind of, it did it okay to it did it poorly. So, I mean, they kind of talk about it a bit. I'm sure they have, well, they definitely haven't explained it in its entirety, whatever it is. Or maybe that's all there is available for now, I don't know, but... Yeah, the whole Yotsu thing, we just ended up... I mean, it ended up a post-game thing, so of course it's going to be done poorly. But it just seemed like confused family feud, and for some reason, what's his name? Gositz is alive again. Spoilers. But now we're getting into Stormblood again, which we fortunately don't really have to think about anymore if we don't want. I guess we never really got into how, like, the Crystal Exarch shit didn't really make sense. We already talked about that. But again, the issue with the core there is that's incidental. You know? I think the fact that a lot of stuff didn't make sense is more annoying by the inconsistent tone. Like, if you have a good, solid, consistent tone and just better writing, I guess. I don't necessarily mind plot holes or like pseudo plot holes so much, because you can massage that over by saying, oh, it's the setting, you know, right? That said, it's, you know, if you can create the whole setting and like everything, like the building blocks of what's happening, they don't matter so much, because like you can just make it whatever you want, right? So it seems kind of lazy that it's not a bit tighter than anything. The difficult part of all this is the feel and the tone and getting everything to feel right. The base building blocks of plot happens because you're doing this and this, you're doing this, and you know, that's easy. Am I done? Guys, am I done? Am I done complaining yet? As fair as it was the official end of Storm, they could have given Yotsu more. And they chose to set the expansion on a whole parallel world, not just Eorzea. Narratively? I don't know. I don't want to say, oh, it's easy, because it's not. You got to do a lot of writing, but at the same time, you're totally freeform at that point. Like, you're not constrained by previous things nearly as much. Just make shit up. Wait, what don't you think is fair about the Yotsu thing? Is it time to continue on? I'll continue on very shortly. I'm curious what Reki was referring to with the Yotsu thing. Oh, you're saying they put it... Oh, they should have... If they were going to do Yotsu better, they probably should have stuck it in the game, yeah. They're like the core game. I'm talking about the whole Gositz arc. That sucked and was dumb. It definitely wasn't the worst post-game content I've seen. That dubious designation belongs to like something in A Realm Reborn. But no forks. I was gonna say one more thing. Oh yeah, I don't think I complained about the Kung Fu guy enough, but I think we get the point. No, you know what? That actually does lead into another point. the inconsistency thing. The Kung Fu guy, I think, is very symptomatic, and I think he's the most obvious example of there just seems to be weird plot threads that are stuck in and don't go anywhere. It's like they had more ideas, didn't flesh them out, but then refused to take them out. It's really quite strange, actually. I can't think of too many examples from previous, or maybe even any off the top of my head from the previous game, parts of the game. Like, this one, like, bleedingly obvious is that guy. Like, what the fuck was that guy? Like, what? And then there was another lesser example, and I think this actually hints at a drastically different storyline if I had to guess. Maybe I'm looking into it too much. Maybe it's just really poor writing. But you remember that bit? And I forgot to complain about it at the time because I started talking about something else. Is when Cat Dude pretends for about 10 seconds that he's the villain. For no apparent reason. It was like, oh, I intended to use you all this time to siphon off the energy for my own purpose. What the hell was that? Does anyone have an explanation for what that was? Like, narratively, it doesn't make any sense. Tonally, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it was just completely out of left field that he was going to do that. She explained it, but why even bother doing that if they're... I don't mean why it happened. Like in terms of the in-character reasons. In-character reasons, sure, they had their own terrible reasons for doing it that way. But narratively speaking, they just bring it up to the last second, do it for 10 seconds, and then undo it immediately after said 10 seconds. Like, literally that lasts for about 3 lines. That definitely seems like a plot arc or an idea they had where it would have been much more expounded upon. Like, he was actually going to pretend to be the villain for a huge chunk of the game, or he was actually maybe going to be the villain, which I guess is less likely, or he would have been manipulated in being into the villain, or, something along those lines. But instead it's just like, I'm the bad guy, ah ha ha ha. Wait a minute, you're not actually the bad guy, and we know this. And he's like, no, you're right, I'm actually doing it for this reason. Yeah, I guess it has parallels with the whole Yasholta thing. In fact, that's exactly what that is. Yasholta at least had the decency to, like, stay dead for 3 minutes or something. So maybe that was also intended to be bigger and they ran out of time, or they didn't want to stretch things out too long, or something. I don't know, maybe it was like... Again, I get this feeling that there were competing writing teams, all looking for their moment to do their plot thing, and when it came to time to smush it all together, it didn't work. Hey, Double Dog. Do everything, plus you have to wonder how good the QA is. It's just weird that they kind of leave that stuff in if it's the case of it all came together and it's like, okay, we gotta cut stuff. But instead of like cutting it out entirely, it's just sort of left in, like just snippets of it. And it doesn't make any sense when it's left in there like that. That's what I was saying. I suspected there were writers in charge of every region, which kind of led to that weird tonal shift sometimes that didn't quite jive. And at worst, it's like the characters were acting a bit weird compared to how they would be at other points. I don't remember specific examples on that. It just, when it happened, it was very noteworthy. Or rather, it was just like very jarring, I guess. I mean, you sort of forget about it, but... I should have written all these instances down where there was something... Man, these are long credits. But yeah, if that actually was the case, again, that matches up with what I was theorizing exactly. That, yeah, there are these different teams doing their thing. Which is how you would do these things. I don't know. I don't know how corporate team writing works. I'm not even going to pretend to understand that. But, like, it hadn't... I'm assuming it's probably something along these lines. And it always worked better in the past. Whereas this, it just really stands out. That it just kind of almost feels like a puzzle piece. That all the pieces are wrong, so it doesn't actually fit together very well. All right. There was actually one more thing I was going to talk about because it wasn't the Kung Fu guy thing. But I can't remember. And at some point it'll probably come up because we're not done the post game yet. Although I could keep trying to think until the credits actually end. Maybe it was the cat guy thing, because we eventually got to him, didn't we? Anyway, like I said, despite all my complaining, still the second best, but also that makes it the second worst expansion pack.